What is the deal with breath? Can you go outside and hear the wind rustling the leaves? Can you visually witness the subtle movements? The subtle movements of atmosphere dancing. Can you feel the breath of life, of the atmosphere on your skin, moving your hair or your clothing? And then can you notice the breath moving in your body? On the physiological level, can you feel and mimic with your hands as you inhale the downward pull of the diaphragm, stretching your lungs, massaging your stomach, muscles underneath, organs underneath your diaphragm. And as you exhale, feeling the return of the diaphragm up toward the heart, and the return of the blood filled with that oxygen back up through the heart. What is the deal with breath? It is the very beginning of each one of our lives in the external. When we come into the outer world, we take a breath. And it is the most essential part of living before water. I guess water would be the first, though, in the womb. But your mother needs her breath in order for you to live in that water. Even holding your breath for a moment can produce a certain kind of panic or constriction. And yet this process, this life fundamental basis, ground base of our being that goes on daily without us having to think about it, is also there for us as a source. And often in the forgetting about the fundamentals of being, the fundamental presence of the first opening of matter in this body being that we are, is breath. And that in our forgetting, we're not only losing connection to becoming more ever embodied in being and flow and becoming in our own rhythms of our own life, art, dance, we're also disconnecting from the greater ecology of being, the breath of life. In the ancient Hebraic, the ruach, the breath of life that breathes into the dust, the Adama, and created human, hummus, that brings life from death. had a student a couple of years ago who said to me, I can't sit and breathe. Just sitting and trying to breathe and focusing on my breath makes me anxious. And I'm so glad she admitted that. Because when we come into the breath, we come into the full body being and everything that is in there constricting the freedom of being. And that is also my story. That there was a time, I don't even know how many years it's been now, but it's not that many years. Sometime maybe 10 years ago, I realized that I could not meditate. I could not even sit and just breathe and focus on my breath because there was so much noise going on inside of my body. And so just to sit and contemplate on my breath, okay, I'm gonna contemplate on my breath, was another effort in not being in my breath. And for me, that's just moment of awareness opened up the floodgates of how much noise and constriction and stories and lies and artificial movement patternings of trying to hold the engineering, the structure of my existence in my body in alignment that I'd been trying to do since the moment I was born. That's more for a memoir and a personal essay than I can say right here. But truly, I cannot tell you enough that it has been deeply in spite of being a vocational dancer that I have had to overcome myself in order to come into my truest breathing, fully body being with the greater ecology of the breath of the big love movement. And so I had to learn on my own, and I'm so grateful for that, and then finding others who actually have expertise in science and psychology and epigenetics and what else? Anthropology. That there's a real truth here, and that we have to learn to move differently. And for me, beginning with the breath was not about sitting and contemplating my breath or using the breath to come to some ecstatic place to overcome just being in my fucking body and trying to go beyond to somewhere else, some ecstatic heightened place. No, being in the breath and in the body is about transformation. So here's a practice. Receiving on the inhale, receiving the rhythm of whatever is banging out there right now. Expanding and taking it in with the breath, the sounds that move with the atmosphere into my body. And then as I exhale, watching the movement that wants to unfold through the exhale. And then receiving on the inhale, possibly expanding, even physically listening to the response. And as I exhale, following the shifts that my body being wants to make. Because there have been movements that have been made that have made me that may not have been the truest me or you in the I am of the big breath, big love movement. It might have been my fears from my grandmother or the constriction through my society or my ballet training. God bless you, ballet, I love you. But there was a dark side for me. So we breathe. Inhale, receive Breathe into the places that need to open and expand, and we exhale. Maybe you need to shake. Let your movement and your breath not be a sitting contemplation in quiet slowness, but also an ecstatic fire, pushing the anger. Exhale all the way out. Or a slow contemplation, but you don't have to sit. Move with the tree. Inhale. Let yourself shimmy and feel the breath on your skin. Watch the tree and the leaves move. Make a shape. Inhale into it as if you're a balloon and you're expanding it. And then you're those crazy things that wind blows through them that advertise oil change locations and shopping malls. Follow it to the end of the breath. And surprisingly, you'll begin to notice that you can take more breath more deeply into the lungs, expanding and helping elimination and digestion and elimination of grief, as the ancient Chinese medicine masters understood it in the lungs. Expanding through the exhale and into the inhale. So I ask you to consider the beginning of life in your breath and create for yourself a 5-minute movement practice throughout this week, the next days ahead. Take 7 days ahead. Take 5 minutes at a timer. Don't sit down. Or, if you've been moving so much, lay down and inhale into the spine lengthening on the floor, opening of the heart. Feel the back of the heart resting. And exhale and feel your body like a boat on the water, head, tail, rocking back and forth, trying to open up the constrictions that come along the spine and the back of the head when we're overly perceiving and overly thinking and overly trying to conceive in our own ego, in our own striving that forgets about the breath of life and the atmosphere and, frankly, the climate change that we are facing and what we are called to in the global atmosphere that touches every human being in this world begins in the atmosphere in our own bodies. It begins with remembering where our breath comes from and where it will return to in the ever ongoing, unfolding desire for more life that this earth is, and perhaps the cosmos and the future planets of habitation. If that is what evolution is when we find them someday. It's not escaping from Mars right now. But we can transform the mistakes that we've made and the suffering that we're causing in the atmosphere right now by forgetting the ruach, the breath of life, the breath of the big love movement of creation, of creativity, of evolution, of ever more well-being and more being. And we lengthen in our breath between earth, grounded, and the sky expanding for ourselves and for others, and the more than human in all of the earth. Breath be with you.